Hey, everybody. I know. First, I know that I'm late. And two, I know that it is New Year's Eve. But sometimes it's just really important to get information out and to let people know things, and it'll give you something to watch tomorrow if you're not able to tune in tonight. So I will give it a second for folks to get in here, and we'll just see who's able to join. But there's some really interesting information that is going to take place in this live. So, I believe in, judging people by their fruit. Hey, Lee, Happy New Year. I would definitely recommend, this is a live that I would recommend that you may want to share with folks. Hey, Daryl, thank you for the picture, by the way. Hey, Tim. Hey, Nathan. Hey, Missy. Hey, Heather. Hey, LaDonna. Hey, Don. Hey, Ketron. Yeah, I know, Tim. I've been running like I've been crazy ever since I got here. So, it just kind of is what it is. Hey, Mandy. Hey, Taylor. How is everybody? You guys doing good? Good. I'm surprised. Look at the folks that are in here, even on New Year's. Maybe it's because I'm so far, I'm like early, like I'm before it's time for the bell. So, but it just seems to be every day that more and more information comes out. And there have been pieces of what I'm about to tell you now that I knew earlier, but just hadn't had a chance to really connect all of the dots. And then there's some information that is really, really new. So I'm going to take a second and kind of, share it all with you guys. So Happy New Year to everybody. I will tell you this. There's a lot happening. And, it's interesting that, right now the government is shut down and so all of that. And so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but that also means that the FTC is shut down. So I sent some information today that I'm sure I will hear back on when they open back up. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take that information and send it on to the state and send it on to the governor's office tomorrow. So, Wayne, they may be catching on. So I'm excited about some things. And I'm not excited because I'm like, oh, this is great. It's not that. It's that, the more information that we can show that there really is a legitimate issue here and that people need to be paying attention, that this is very significant. It's important. You know what I mean? So give me 1 second because I believe they're calling me to tell me that my friend is here and they're asking me to let her up. Hold on for a second. They'll call me back, I'm sure. So let me just double check real quick because I want them to let her up. So it's one of those days again. So, so let me just go ahead and I'm going to give you guys some background. Some of it we will have. Hey, Happy New Year to everybody. Hey, Christy, Crystal, Suzanne, Todd, I see everybody. But I really want to give you this information because it's super duper important. And one of the things that I've said when I talk about, the different things that have happened with different politicians, when I talk about, Alan Levine's past work history at HMA and things of that nature, I'm not saying it to attack them personally. I'm saying these things matter because these are legitimate things. These are business things. These are things that we should be concerned with because it has a direct impact on what's happening right now in our communities with our health systems. So on that note, she's trying to tell me ain't no parking. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dig in and share with you guys kind of where we're at. So, okay. So you guys have heard me talk a little bit about, Desi, I hate that you are in the hospital. Joyce, I'm not sure and I need to look. It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure just yet, but I'm taking a note right now so that I can check it out. Okay, so let me go ahead and kind of give you guys some information. Okay, here we go. So you've heard me talk previously about Alan Levine working for HMA, and not just working for HMA, but him being the president and CEO of the Florida group. And he was over 20 some hospitals, right? So, and you've heard me talk about the 60 Minutes interview and all of that, but I want to backtrack just a little bit. So what would you say if I told you that every hospital that, what if I told you that every hospital and every healthcare system that Alan Levine has ever worked at has had a whistleblower lawsuit case and has either had allegations of or been convicted of, not convicted in terms of but like civil lawsuits from the federal government for Medicaid and Medicare fraud? What if I told you that it's not just HMA? What if I told you that it goes much, much further back than that? And what if I told you that it was tied to politicians in Florida, the same way he's got politicians working here in Tennessee? Well, not here where I'm at, but back home in Tennessee. But let me kind of give you some real big breakdown. So let me just back up. Alan Levine graduated from college after he got his master's in business and master's in healthcare administration and business in 1992. And in 1992, he went to work for a company called HCA. Now, some of you all may be familiar with HCA, right? Because they're a company right now that's, making other acquisitions in the areas and things like that. But let me give you a little bit of history about HCA. HCA back then was a smaller company, and there was another company by the name of Columbia Healthcare. Columbia Healthcare was started in Florida by a gentleman by the name of Rick Scott. Now, you all might know Rick Scott because he went on to become the governor. I know, stay with me, folks. I'm going to bring you all the way up to the present day appointment, but just stay with me. Y'all ready? So Rick Scott, who years later, went on to become the governor of Florida, he had a healthcare company called Columbia that he started in Texas. And then in 1994, Rick Scott and Columbia purchased HCA, and they together became Columbia/HCA. Now, here's what's really important. They grew very, very quickly. At the time in 1997, when the FBI and the IRS raided their hospitals and their corporate headquarters, when those raids took place in 1997, they had 350 hospitals. Shortly after those raids took place, Rick Scott was forced to resign. The board made him resign. Okay. So now, I can't answer all the questions yet, folks. So just listen, just stay right here and follow the path that I want to stick to with Levine. Stay right here for just a second. We're going to get to talking about all that other stuff, but just stay right here for a second. Okay. So here's what's important to note. So they made Rick Scott resign. In the year 2000, the government came down with a judgment, criminal convictions and fines against Columbia/HCA. Okay, so that first fine was really, really large. It was over $800 million for Medicaid and Medicare fraud. Okay, now 2 years later, in 2002, they had another round of judgments placed against them for another $881 million. So Columbia/HCA was fined the largest fine in history, $1.7 billion for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. And it happened during the time that Rick Scott was the CEO. Now, here's what's really interesting about that. Alan Levine worked there the entire time. He joined HCA when he got out of college in 1992. He worked there right up until 2003 after the second round of fines came through. Now, when he started there, he was like, hold on, and I'll tell you exactly what the title is. But when he started there, he was like administration, hold on one second. He started out in like associate administrator positions. And then he grew to become the CEO and COO of several of those hospitals. So during this time, when Medicaid and Medicare fraud was being committed by HCA, Columbia/HCA, he was the CEO of hospitals at that time. He was COO of hospitals at that time. And no one was charged criminally as an individual. Only the corporation was, because corporations can't go to prison. So they were fined $1.7 billion. So this is where Alan Levine learned healthcare, was under Columbia and HCA. Now, at the end of that, That ended in 2003. From 2003 to 2006, he went to work for Jeb Bush. When he worked for Jeb Bush, he started out as like the deputy chief of staff, and then he became, what did he become? He became the Secretary of Healthcare Administration. And during that time, listen to this, he led the state's health planning agency and single state agency responsible for Medicaid and regulation of healthcare facilities. He proposed reforms and he sought and received legislation approval to implement the most sweeping reforms to state Medicaid program. He also received a federal waiver approval for the reforms for, it was a $17 billion Medicaid program. So follow me, he leaves a company that is fined $1.7 billion for Medicaid and Medicare fraud, and then he goes to work for the government leading Medicaid reform and getting waivers for a $17 billion state-funded Medicaid program. Isn't that interesting? So then in 2006, when he leaves working for Jeb Bush, right? When he leaves working from Jeb Bush, he goes to Broward Health. Now, why is that interesting? Because just last year, December of 2017, there was another whistleblower case that involved, and he gets mentioned in this whistleblower case, which is really, really interesting. And I'm going to read a bit of it to you. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can check it out for yourself, but here's the deal. There was a 25-year no bid deal, right? So what they basically say is there's a Fort Myers-based company called 21st Century Oncology. And 21st Century Oncology is a large anti-cancer company that's financially tied to Governor Rick Scott. Imagine that, by the way, to obtain an exclusive 25-year no bid contract to provide lucrative oncology services at Broward. But follow me. In the original complaint, there's some other stuff that gets said, but I'm going to get down to the part that's really juicy. You ready? So among other things, listen, among other things, the suit contends that 21st Century and its former CEO, Dr. Daniel Dorseretz, illegally schemed as early as 2006 to take over radiation oncology services at Broward Health. It says that back then, Dorseretz promised then CEO Alan Levine that in return for accepting 21st Century's proposal, the company's doctors would refer high volumes of patients to Broward Health for surgeries, admissions, and other services. It is illegal under federal law to offer or make referrals of Medicare patients in return for anything of value. Now, this is reported by the Florida Bulldog, but it's an actual legal case that was in the courts for Broward County just last year this time. And the allegations go all the way back to when Alan was there. So are y'all following the pattern? So HCA, the first company that Alan Levine works for, gets fined $1.7 billion for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. He leaves there. He goes to work for Jeb Bush, expanding Medicaid, putting together Medicaid reforms, cracking down on Medicaid fraud, and then he goes to work at Broward Health. And at Broward Health, guess what we have? We have some more allegations of Medicaid fraud and inappropriate and illegal behavior. He leaves there in 2008 and he goes to work for the government again in South Carolina for Governor Jindal. And there he is the Secretary of Health and Hospitals. And guess what he does again? He starts to work on Medicaid kickback, Medicaid fraud. I almost read your comment, Susan, but he starts to work again on cracking down on Medicaid fraud and Medicaid expansion and all of that good stuff. And he stays there until 2010. When he leaves 2010, guess where he goes? Then he goes to HMA. Well, we all know what happened at HMA, right? He was at HMA from 2010 to 2014. In 2012, he was interviewed by 60 Minutes where he swears up and down nobody was doing anything illegal. And then in September of this year, the Department of Justice fines them $260 million for what? You're right. Thank you, Wayne. Louisiana. South Carolina is where Tony Knecht went. Thank you for that correction. Thank you. South Carolina is where Tony Knecht went after they were both in Louisiana together. So when he left and he went to Louisiana, Tony Knecht came to Louisiana to work for him. And then Tony Knecht left there and Tony Knecht went to South Carolina. Thank you. So long story short, at the end of the day, just this past September, HMA, the company that Alan Levine said on national TV and said, absolutely not, we've never done anything like that, was fined $260 million for Medicare and Medicaid fraud. And then he comes to Mountain States Health Alliance, right, where the region just happens to be rural, where 70% of the people just happen to be on Medicare or Medicaid. And what does he do? He teams up with Terry Kilgore, gives some financial contributions to his campaign. All of a sudden, Terry Kilgore wants to expand Medicaid in the state of Virginia, which in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which he's always fought against, right? And now all of a sudden, he gets an award from Ballad Health for enrolling 40,000 people in Southwest Virginia in Medicaid. So here's all I'm going to say. If every company you've ever worked for has allegations and judgments of fraud for Medicaid and Medicare, and in each of those companies, you were a CEO or a COO, sir, one of two things is true. Either you absolutely 100% knew what was going on, or you fucking suck at your job. Just saying. I don't know, Casey. I would love the answer to that question too. I want to know why all of these people don't understand who this person is that works, that's running Ballad Health. I don't understand why they don't understand what a liability that he is. It's just that simple, folks. This isn't me giving you like crazy allegations. This isn't me like just spouting off at the mouth. These are real court cases. These are real freaking judgments. This is real liabilities. Governor Rick Scott right now has issues. His wife is in trouble right now for more fraud. Hold on a second. Let me just give, well, in August of 2018, Rick Scott paid $200,000 in tax incentives to the company in which he had a financial interest. Like, corruption is following these guys everywhere they go. So let me just show you. So right now, oh, good Lord. Hold on a second. Hello. Hey, baby, I'm good. How are you? Yep, you can send her up. All right, thanks, baby. Happy New Year to you. You're welcome. Bye. All right. So here's the bottom line, right? This is the bottom line. This is not anything. So when Alan Levine says that someone, this is what he always says, someone on social media is personally attacking them, I have not ever personally attacked Alan Levine. What I have done is talk about his track record and his professional and business employment and what's happened at the companies, every private company he's ever worked for. Susan, I would think the board knows these things because for God's sake, they all watch my lives. So they should be just as informed as you guys are. And I know they watch my lives because Tony Keck has told me they watch my lives. Right? So here's the deal. I've looked. Right now, to this day, Alan Levine contributes politically. He contributes to campaigns in Florida, South Carolina, Louisiana, Virginia, and Tennessee. I've looked. I've followed his financial campaign contributions. I know who he gave money to. That's how I know Terry Kilgore got $3,000 from him for his campaign. That's how I know Phil Rowe got $8,000 for his campaign. Because I've looked to see where he puts money. This is why he's a fan of state-run healthcare, because if you can pay off the state politicians to pass legislation on your behalf and do what you want to do, if you can get in good with the folks who investigate Medicaid fraud, then before the hammer comes down, you can haul ass and leave town and go work somewhere else. Those are facts. Like, guys, listen, here's the thing. Y'all, you tell me what you think. If he graduates college in 1992 and he goes to work for a company for 10 years and 8 months, and that company gets fined for $1.7 billion, and during that time he is CEOs and COOs of hospitals in that organization, and then he goes on to work for the government cracking down on Medicaid fraud, and then he goes on to another company that also has a whistleblower case for, guess what, Medicaid fraud, and then he goes back to the government to crack down on Medicaid fraud again, and then he goes to another company for 4 years and they get $260 million in Medicaid fraud. You tell me, I'm just guessing, what do y'all think is going on? What do y'all think? Is it just me that finds it coincidental? Is it just, I'm just saying, like, well, holy hell, here's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like you learn about Medicaid fraud, you participate in the private sector, you make it look like you're turning a hospital around because you get them a lot of profits frauding the government, and then you leave right before the hammer drops. Those hospitals end up getting fined big time. So the money that you saved them, you really didn't save them because it catches up with them in the end anyway. Then you go work for the government to crack down on Medicaid fraud so you can learn again exactly what they're looking for and how they go about doing it. And once you learn the latest things from the government, you take your ass back to the private sector. You make some big money again, right? You turn a hospital around again, right? And then before the hammer drops again, you leave. You take your ass back to the government. You find out the newest things that are happening on how to crack down on Medicaid fraud. When you finish doing that, you go right on back to another private hospital so you can make some big bucks. And coincidentally, within 4 to 6 months before the DOJ takes over again, you haul ass. This is who's your CEO, folks. So when he says to me, oh, you have to be cynical to think that we would do this. No, I don't have to be cynical, sir. I got to have a little bit of damn common sense. These are facts. This ain't like I couldn't even make this up if I wanted to. And what's so crazy is they hide behind these corporations, and the government never goes after these guys individually. They never get charged criminally. They never have to do anything. The corporation has to pay their money. What's up, Melanie? And then that is it. And then they know. This is what makes me angry about the government, because you know that this is what's happening. You know that they go from company to company doing the same thing. And you don't care because all you guys doing is impose fines to get your money back. Yet and still, there are patients at the other end of this fraud. There are patients at the other end of this fraud who are losing their benefits. There are patients at the other end of this fraud who are having to pay higher copays and more money out of pocket, who are losing their ability to take care of themselves and get their own medication. And meanwhile, you are lining your pockets. Thank you. So, I mean, it's bad enough that you're defrauding the government and you're going back and forth between government and private jobs. But at the end of the day, there are people being impacted by these choices. So let me just be really clear. I don't buy your Bible verses. I don't buy your Appalachian Highlands. We're proud of our region. This is not your region, sir. Just because you come to town every now and again and you bought a house amongst the other places where you live and you happen to run a hospital there doesn't make you one of us. I can have not lived there for 10 years, sir. And when I come home, they know I'm home. I sound like them, talk like them, I eat like them, I know like them. You, sir, are not us. So you can say our all you want to in our Appalachian Highlands. No, what you think you're going to do is you think you're going to pay off the local politicians by trying to bring in economic development. And that's supposed to make you look good, even though you are tearing our healthcare apart. I don't give a shit how many hotel rooms you fill with strangers and tourists. Let me ask you something. For all these people you want to bring to town, what are they going to do when they come to town and there's a major accident and there's no level 1 trauma center at Holston Valley to take care of them? Just wondering about that, why you want to bring them to town. Oh, wait, maybe you're only going to bring them to Johnson City. Maybe you're only going to bring them to Kingsport once just to make everybody feel good. Kingsport 2030, right? Appalachian Highlands, right? Happy New Year to you. So let me just be real clear about all of this, okay? Oh, well, let me just go ahead and tell you who Appalachian Highlands is, since everybody wants to know. If you follow Alan Levine on Twitter, he's tweeting about it a whole lot recently, even though the resolutions making Appalachian Highlands a thing only passed 3 weeks ago. Appalachian Highlands is a collaborative agreement between Bristol, Kingsport, and Johnson City's Chamber of Commerce's to figure out how to bring economic development to the region. That's what it is. And somehow, within just a few weeks of these resolutions being passed, and for the cities wanting to team up together, all of a sudden, Alan Levine's throwing around Appalachian Highlands in his tweets. So is Lisa Carter, by the way. Lisa Carter's really, really happy that she belongs to an organization that isn't just passionate about healthcare, but also about economic growth. Bite me, Lisa Carter. I can't. These are facts. Like, I can't make this up. And there's a way. Let me just tell y'all something. There is a way to do. Nobody is. So listen, Richard, regionalism has been around a long damn time, sir. Regionalism does not mean devastate our healthcare system. Regionalism does not mean cut our nurses' pay. Regionalism doesn't mean that you repurpose every freaking hospital before you build up the freaking EMS systems. You can throw around a big word, but nobody's confused by it. I know what the hell regionalism is, and this ain't regionalism. Regionalism is real serious. You put together a plan that benefits the region. Let me tell you something. He likes to talk about Charlotte, North Carolina only has one level 1 trauma. Well, let me tell you this. I know what he calls it. I don't care what he calls it. Listen, whatever. Let me just tell you this. Period. When he talks about Charlotte, North Carolina, let me tell you something. When you sit at Charlotte, North Carolina, you can travel almost in any direction, and from anywhere from 70 to 95 miles, you will find another level 1 or level 2 trauma center in every direction, right? That's not the case back home. That's not the case where you live, folks. Where you live, when you get to the end of 70 and 80 miles, you have to travel another 70 or 80 miles to get to one. That's why it don't work. Y'all get that, right? If I go from Charlotte to Winston-Salem, that's level 1 to level 1. If I go from Charlotte to Columbia, South Carolina, that's level 1 to level 1. See, so here's the thing. It doesn't work because it's double the distance. And some of us are smart enough to look beyond that. Thank you, Lori, for answering that question for me. Folks, let me tell you something, because I promised y'all a few things. I promised you some information about fraud, and I just gave it to you, right? I gave you that. So now what I'm going to give you are clear violations of the terms of certification and antitrust. So here we go. Are you ready? Here we go. So in the December 13th letter to Alan Levine, Commissioner Dreisner told him in no uncertain terms that the NICU was not even being considered for downgrade yet. He also said that if any action had been taken to move forward with the downgrading of that NICU in any way, shape, or form, that it would be considered a violation of the terms of certification. Well, here's what I can tell you definitively, no BS, seen it with my own eyes. Here we go. You ready? They put together a transition team for the Holston Valley NICU nurses. They took them down to Niswangers and had them tour the facility. In addition to doing that, they have already tried to get with IT to put them in what's called, I think it's Smart Square. Smart Square is the system where you actually make your own schedules as a nurse. Cindy Burleson is who is working with them in Johnson City, who is getting in touch with the NICU nurses and the NICU supervisors in Holston Valley. Those are facts, folks. Transition team in place, having them tour the facility in place, asking them when they can go for a second tour is in place. All of that. Those are violations of the terms of certification. Alan Levine tweeted yesterday that there was going to be one level 3 NICU. He tweeted it yesterday. Let me tell you what, that is the same as looking at John Dreisner and saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, sir, and you're going to go along with it. He literally believes he can do and say whatever he wants to do. Right, Crystal, I know. So her saying 35 babies isn't worth the financial commitment is the same thing as Alan Levine saying, we're literally only talking about 100 babies. But then again, they have other staff that said that cancer treatment is not a patient right. So are we really surprised at the thing that's coming out of their mouth at this point? I'm not. I'm not. Because I hear it all the time and everything that they say and do. Those are the facts. Now, let me go ahead and tell you something else. The other day at the rally, I mentioned to you that they are flirting very closely with antitrust violations. So let me just explain this, folks. Just because they have a COPA doesn't mean that they have a blanket covering for immunity from antitrust violations. That's not true. Even in the terms of certifications, there are certain things that they are not allowed to do to stop competition. Well, let me tell you what they've done. And today I actually got proof that I forwarded to the FTC. You ready? So not only have they put out patient choice forms where no other competitor is listed at all, which I put up on my Facebook page and I put in the private Facebook group the other day. But in addition to that, they have literally told other companies that are competitors of them. So whether those companies are hospice companies, whether they are home health companies, whether they are rehab companies, they have told those other companies that do not belong to them that they are no longer allowed to come to the hospitals and see the case managers. They're no longer allowed to take them to lunch. All they are allowed to do is drop off their sales material with the secretaries. That's it. As a matter of fact, I can tell you, and I'm not going to tell you right now, but I have documentation for one of the management personnel within Ballad Health that threatened to have a competitor banned from the hospital. Let me tell you something, folks. That is a clear violation of the terms of certification and the antitrust. Period. So here's the deal, right? Here's what needs to happen. Real clear, real simple. State Health Department of Tennessee, Governor of Tennessee, Commissioner Dreisner, and your replacement. Every single one of you all needs to get on board and pay attention to what's happening in this rural community, because we are not going away, and we're getting pretty smart, and we're finding a lot of stuff that you ought to be paying attention to. And pretty soon, somebody with a national media platform is also going to start paying attention. You might want to believe that, because some of us might have been talking to some national people already. So I promise you, somebody's going to get interested real damn quick. And when they do, you're not going to be able to save your asses. You're not going to be able to cover up your shame. You're not going to be able to cover up your embarrassment for the plain out stuff that you have allowed to take place in this community. Just saying, while you all lined your own pockets. True story. It's real simple. Commissioner Dreisner, your wife has a company that gets paid by Ballad Health. She is listed as a medical director for Ballad Health. You know that. You put it in your financial disclosures that you benefit monetarily from her companies and her company's contract with Ballad Health. So it's real clear, sir, you have an ethics violation, if not a criminal violation, and you might want to start to do the right thing. Because I've already asked the governor's office to open an investigation at the direction of the attorney general. I need you to understand, it was the attorney general's office who told me that the governor's legal counsel is the one who has whatever it is, reign over you, that you fall in their jurisdiction. There we go, jurisdiction. So I've already talked to them, and they've already told me that they're looking into it. So you might want to wake up and do the right damn thing. Sir, just saying. Here's what I want for this community, okay? Here's what I want for this community. I want everybody to come to the table. I want us to take a look at the options when it comes to our health care. And if we're going to be stuck with a quote unquote medical monopoly that is right now Ballad Health, right, then that means getting rid of the board. Bye, all of you. Peace. See ya. 33% of that board needs to be living in Tennessee, 33% needs to be living in Virginia, and 33% needs to be medical professionals, and at least one of those medical professionals needs to be a nurse. So we need to have physicians and we need to have nurses. So that needs to be what the board looks like, right? And then we want to take a look at all the CEOs and the senior management. So I'm just going to throw a few names out that need to go. Alan Levine, peace. Tony Keck, bye. Lisa Carter, see you later. Molly Luton, out the door. Lisa Smith-Gall, bye. We're not even going to say, like, we don't even care that you're going. See you later. Let me see. Andy Hall, bye. Eric Deaton, see you later. And I'm sure I can come up with a few more names to go along with it, but let's just start right there. All of those folks, peace. See ya, out the door. That's what needs to happen. The state, Richard, is going to help us get rid of the board. So yeah, Testerman, see you later. You've made enough money already. You can go now. And then once we get rid of, yeah, Lynn too, I'm with you, Crystal. So then when we get rid of all the board and we switch that thing up and we get some proper representation when it comes to the physicians and the nurses and people who actually know what healthcare needs to look like in this region, right? Then you start to look at the management and the leadership. And then here's what you do. Here's what it would be if it were me, right? If it were me, kind of like trying to find some solutions here, I would task each of the physicians groups at each of the hospitals. And I would get a mixture of pediatrics and orthopedics and your cancer services. So all your major service lines, your neonatal, your cardiovascular, all of those folks, I would get them all together. And I would have like a committee for each hospital made up of physicians and nurses. And I would have each of them put together kind of what falls in line with what they think their region needs to have, right? Knowing that you're not going to get everything, but find out like a workable, like you are the boots on the ground. Bobby Murphy, yes, thank you, Jess. And that one needs to go too. Along with Monty McLaren, that one can go too. But so then once you figure out what the actual physicians and the nurses who are there treating the patients every day say we need, then you come back to the board and say, okay, so what do we need to work with and how do we need to work with it? Do I understand that we have to make changes to some of the major acute places that we have, the acute care facilities? Absolutely. So we could build some very sophisticated micro hospitals that can do a good majority, 90% of what needs to be done. But before you start downgrading things, before you start taking services away, why don't we add to our EMS system? Why don't we add an ambulance in every county at least? Why don't we give additional training to the people who are going to be responsible for transport? Why don't we make sure that we have the best equipment possible? If we know that we live in a rural community and we're going to have to rely more on transports, why don't we equip them better? Why don't we get the right equipment in there? Why don't we get the right people trained? Why don't we have a supportive system that is going to make sure or at least decrease the possibility of people dying in the process? Why don't we do that before we just start taking things away and downgrading shit? I mean, I know you need to save money, but for God's sake, take it out of your salary for the first 5 years. How about that? These are simple things. Just saying, if it were me, these are the things, and it ain't me. I'm not the CEO of a hospital, right? I just have a little bit of common sense. These are the things that I would look at. These are the things that make sense to me. And then for me, it would be a hybrid healthcare system. And here's what I mean by that. It would be a hybrid healthcare system, knowing that we need acute healthcare available for the issues and the illnesses that people already have. But then the other side of that would also be education. It would be lots of prenatal care. Maybe what we could do is put together some mobile healthcare. Like there's a group of doctors that independently did this in another rural market in Tennessee. There was an article about it in the Tennessean. And what these doctors did was they operated outside of the hospital. And they, I saw you, Tim, I got it. They put together contracts with the insurance companies and they have a mobile unit that goes down into some of these areas so that they can see people. So what if people knew that on Mondays and Thursdays, the mobile healthcare unit was going to come equipped with a doctor to be able to check them out and do preventative care? And what if people could get ultrasounds without having to travel 30 miles or 40 miles when they can't do them? What if we could actually prevent some of the premature births that we have, lower the infant mortality rate, lower the maternal mortality rate? What if we could do all of those types of things with stuff that doesn't, like that money you want to spend for pediatric ERs that we don't need? Allocate that money for services that will benefit the region and actually increase population health. Like that's the agenda, right? That should be what we're striving for, is to improve overall population health. Right, guys, things like that. Just saying. So anyway, it's New Year's Eve, and I'm not going to stay on here very, very long, but I wanted to give you all the information so that you know exactly who's running the hospital, who's running Ballad Health, who's running Ballad Health. What are your representatives saying about this? What are your politicians saying about this? What is your community saying about this? So let me just tell you this. in the next 2 days, I'm going to be putting up a letter. This letter is going to include everything that we would like to see addressed. It's also going to be requesting that the state annual review be moved to Kingsport. I'm going to post that letter online. What I would ask for all of you all to do is 2 things. I would ask for you to print that letter off. I would ask for you to add anything to it that you want for you personally. I would ask you to sign that letter, and then I would ask you to email it to all of the people that I've given you before, and I will put them at the top of this as well. And then I'm going to ask you to print that letter out, and I'm going to ask you to bring it January 22nd to the local COPA Advisory Council meeting at Northeast State University. I'm going to ask you to show up there with that letter in hand, and I'm going to ask you to also send it to the Board of Directors for Ballad Health. And if the Board of Directors for Ballad Health doesn't want to do what's right, then you can be the first to go. That's what we want to see happen. Got it? So those are the things that I'm going to be asking for. So be looking, I was traveling again today, be looking for the online order form where you can order your Rally for the Valley t-shirts that we all wore. I will be putting that up between today and tomorrow. Thank you, Kim. And listen, we're going to have you all, Kevin, I'm going to put all of the folks up at the top of this email. So check this out. We're going to allow you to order t-shirts between now and Sunday. Sunday will be the last day to order them. And the reason why is it will take that long for us to get all of the t-shirts back. And then I want every single one of you to show up to that damn COPA council review on January 22nd with the letter in hand and that Rally for the Valley t-shirt. And you let them know that we're not playing. The same way that over 200 of you, almost 300 of you showed up on Saturday. I want 200 to 300 of you to show up at Northeast State on January 22nd, sporting your t-shirts, holding your letters in hand, and you demand that the board do what they were put together to do. You demand that they absolutely start to take accountability for the situation that they have put the people in, and we will make some change happen. So that's what I want to see happen. The t-shirts are only $12. It will have a place for you to put the size of the t-shirt that you want and the number of that size that you want. You will be immediately directed to the Rally for the Valley PayPal. It is not my PayPal, it's the Rally for the Valley PayPal. And when you get there, all you got to do is change it to the quantity amount, submit your payment. Angie Stanley oh my God, I'm so grateful for her. She's the one who spearheaded this for me. She will be the person that will get in touch with you about your t-shirts. She will make sure that you get them, and we will continue to do what we do. In the meantime, spread the word. We're going to be doing that as well. You're going to start to see some Facebook ads for us. You're going to start to see some newspaper ads. You're going to just start to see us investing in the community to get the word out. We know not everyone has Facebook. Not everyone is on YouTube. We are going to get this word out. And I want you to do the same thing. I want you to be talking to your kids' teachers. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to the guy who bags your groceries at the store. Talk to your mechanic. Talk to your pastor. Start to talk to the people in your community the same way you would talk about what Sally Joe was wearing to the dance the other night. I need you to be talking about Ballad healthcare and the changes and what it means to our community, and let's make some change happen. Got it? We're doing it, y'all. They don't want you to think so, but we're making a difference. I'm telling you. So anyway, I'm about to go so I can, finish unpacking and have my New Year's Eve drink and do all of those things, okay? So I'm going to get out of here. Y'all know how I end absolutely everything. Y'all can say it with me. Y'all ready? Here we go. Be amazing. Be light. Be love. Peace. And Happy New Year. Bye.